Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. Let's get to it. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Adam Goldman. Adam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Great to see you, Aaron.
I really appreciate you making the time. I'm just going to gloss over the fact that you decided to leave New Jersey, probably the second to best state in the union, to go to Houston, something like that. There's floods there. Everything's bigger, but the summers are hot. I was there once in the summer. Whatever. I think we should just gloss over that. What do you think?
So lower taxes as well. No state income tax, my friend.
Are you still a New Jersey sports fan?
I am. I've held on to the Giants. That's kind of my big local team. And look, shout out to the New Jersey Devils, right? This I haven't really followed them for a while, but the Olympics, this guy's become Hoffman, right? It's his name. I love him.
Can I say something unbelievable about that? Hughes,
yeah.
His name Hughes? I think his name is Hughes. Hughes. I'll tell you something unbelievable about this guy. I don't know. So I don't know when this is going to air a few weeks later, but I'll just say that he just had his big return this week to New Jersey. And I don't know if you saw, I don't talk politics on the show, but what I will say, what I love about what's going on right now with that team in particular is, so they welcomed him back to the New Jersey Devils. They had this whole thing before the game. I don't know if you saw this, but he got the mic, and before he said anything, I don't remember who they were playing even. There was somebody who was on the team with him, the Team USA team, who he was playing against. And this whole hoopla was for him, the hero, and he actually went and called the guy onto the ice and skated around with him. And I just think there's something about sport, and there's something that really brings people together. And I love the Olympics. I actually love watching other countries in the Olympics, like the smaller countries, when the guy wins his the country's first ever bronze medal. And I don't know, I feel like there's something great about it. And it's almost like it's the way it used to be, or the way it's supposed to be, which is fun, serious, fun, but also like a game and a sport, and appropriate and done in the right manner, and really bringing people
Absolutely.
together. So,
I'm with you 100%.
Whatever.
My family love watching the Olympics together.
I open almost every episode by asking our listeners to hit pause, read Adam's full bio. When I saw the opportunity come across my desk to speak with you, I was pumped because you do something super awesome. You are in the franchise advisory business, which I want to get into because I think franchises are super awesome. I think they're super misunderstood, and I think it's a wild hustle. But I got to ask, how on God's good earth does someone get involved in franchise coaching? Take us back, take us to the moment. You know, I know how I got involved in insurance. I have no idea how someone decides to be a franchise coach, other than I guess maybe owning the most franchise in the U.S. or something like that. So we got to start there.
So I think that in order to do anything, Aaron, what you need to do is you need to know what you're doing first, right? So I've actually lived the life for my candidates. And what I mean by that is that, number one, I was a franchisor, meaning I bought into a master franchise called Vanguard Cleaning in 2010. I'm also a franchisee. I had a head office, right? And I was also a candidate. I bought my franchise through a franchise coach that helped me. I graduated from my MBA at Berkeley in 2004. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and did some real estate investment. Just never really knew what was next for me, and talked to a franchise coach, and they decided to connect me with this Vanguard Cleaning. Built that up from scratch in 2010. But into it 8 years, frankly, I was like, okay, this is great. We built this up, but it was a lot harder to build it from 200 or 300 buildings. I don't remember how many buildings we cleaned, to 500 or 600 than was from 0 to 200. So kind of explored this and had someone come to me unsolicited that decided they wanted to buy the Houston market, and just kind of stumbled into this and realized that I really, really like coaching and consulting people that are exploring franchises.
So do you believe the path? Because I like this story, because one of the things we talk about on Keep Hustling is defining and redefining the hustle and evolving the hustle. So you started, just so I can be clear, you owned a franchise in the cleaning business. Then you started selling the franchise. So you went from being the franchisee to the franchisor, right?
So to be clear, I was a franchisor from the beginning. It's a concept called a master franchisee or master franchisor. And that's something where you buy the rights to be a franchisor in a specific territory. So I was the franchisor in Houston.
Got it. So it's an interesting thing, franchises. This is really like, I just, it's such an interesting hustle because very often, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you're from New Jersey, so you have thin skin. I'm from New York, I have thick skin. Then you even went from Jersey, went to Houston. I don't even want to know. So I'll try not to offend you. Trust me, you can't offend me. But I feel like so many people today, especially younger entrepreneurs, say, why would I franchise? The dream, the goal, the new American dream is to invent something, is to start something anew, is to invent that, not buy into a franchise and make it better or optimize it or become the best at that franchise. But then I'm working for somebody else. Yet I would say some of the world's most successful brands that we all know, the famous ones, I'm assuming like McDonald's is franchises and 7-Eleven and gas stations and all that kind of stuff. But also, as you said, there's cleaning companies and maintenance companies and electricians and all those kind of things that you can become the person in the local area, mastering your trade. But I look at it more as leveraging what someone else is doing, not that I have to reinvent it or that I would just be another version of you. So what do you say to that dichotomy?
So Aaron, I think you brought up an amazing point. And the point is this: let's divide this up. Let's kind of break this down, right? So first step is, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, right? Then you've got to choose between two separate paths. If you're the kind of person, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, right, you want to start Facebook, you have all this initiative, go ahead and start Facebook, right? But the vast majority of people, if they look at their skill set, they're not necessarily people that are starting something from scratch, right? So there are a lot of people that have lots of entrepreneurial spirit, but they're not really good at that whole starting from scratch thing. And that's where franchising comes in. It's a way for people that have the ability to replicate a process that works and to become successful franchisees.
I have a billion follow-up questions. First of all, does that mean that a person loses their creativity? I don't know how franchises work, but I assume that there are certain things that are set in stone. Like, this is what the napkins you're going to use. And this is going to be I'm just thinking about 7-Eleven because I go there. I have a local 7-Eleven, but I'm not choosing that brand in any like particular thing. But it's like you go to a 7-Eleven and sometimes the soda's first and sometimes the coffee's first. Sometimes they have this product in addition to the regular 7-Eleven product. Sometimes they have others. Like, is there individuality within franchises? Is there a way that a person could say that they can optimize their profits or make it their own? Or is it very rigid? Because I could see the entrepreneur saying, great, I'd rather have my own freedom and expression versus your rigid structure, I guess.
Let's turn this on its head, right? I would argue that for the right person and the right franchise brand, that the system liberates as opposed to constrains you. And what I mean by that is that if you are in a great system, right, that's taking care of this stuff that you, frankly, as a startup entrepreneur, don't really want to worry about, things such as your bookkeeping system or how expensive it might be to set up different things. If you have a system that's kind of proven that tells you all those things, you can focus your time and energy on parts of your business that really matter, as opposed to worrying about things that frankly don't matter very much.
But I assume you've seen people work with the same franchise. Franchise X, it could be a cleaning business, it could be food, it could be anything. And they take it in two totally different directions. Yeah. Obviously, what I'm saying is there are certain parameters, right? You can't have a McDonald's and the color be blue. But I feel like that what ends up getting, I think you're right, that for a lot of people, maybe this is the way to enter, and yet it seems like the fear of that rigidity is overrated. I'm assuming obviously that varies based on franchise. There are probably some franchises that are extremely rigid, and that's what makes their brand. But for the average entrepreneur or person who thinks they want to be an entrepreneur, person who thinks they want to be their own boss, you're right. I guess this is like the liberated boss, where some of the decisions that bog people down, payroll. Where are you going to get your napkins? How are you going to get this? How are you going to make sure it happens every week? How are you going to change with the seasons? I think the craziest thing about franchises is probably the seasonality of the marketing, right? Like what picture's in the window. If I have to think about that every season, 6 months in advance to get everything done, then I can't focus on my store, right? I can't focus on my franchise, like brand. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look, God only gave us a certain amount of hours each day, right? So use that time wisely.
Can everyone be a franchisee?
Absolutely not.
Tell me what would make someone terrible. Tell me what would make someone, you talk to them in your initial coaching call and you're like, this is not for you.
Hey, Adam, I really don't like following instruction or a model. Can I just kind of, I want to be a McDonald's franchisee, but I want to sell kebabs there. How does that work? I saw this amazing movie called Coming to America. I don't want McDonald's. I want whatever it is from that movie.
Right. But I would say that probably some of those people would actually do better in that environment, like you're saying, because part of the environment creates a certain level of structure. And if you have no idea what you're doing, like there's a reason why some franchises are abundantly successful, right? Because they have something, they have the secret sauce, right? Nobody's going to outdo Panda Express in fast food Chinese anytime soon. They figured it out.
Yeah, but at the same time, even if someone would do great in Panda Express, as opposed to starting their own Chinese restaurant, right? If they don't see the value in the system, if they say to me, they say, hey, all you franchisors are all the same. I don't get any value at all. You're just taking royalty fees and franchise fees. I can start this out and I can figure this out on my own. Then they're just not going to buy no matter what.
Right. And I guess if that person should probably just be left to roam themselves and see if they're successful.
Absolutely. And I wish that everyone knew about how important system is, but I think that in general, people tend to underestimate the value of a proven system from a franchise brand. One of my favorite books is by Gerber called The E-Myth. In fact, my candidate just independently decided to read it yesterday. And the whole thesis behind it is that if you start a business on your own without processes, you'll be wearing many hats and you'll be unproductive, period.
Yeah. Here's what I would say. I think that there are some people who that's their juice.
Okay. Yeah. I would agree with you.
And someone needs to be behind them to catch it.
I'm not that person. Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. So I think when we talk about the reason why I love the fact that you came on this show is that so much of what I'm trying to bring to the audience or to people is that your hustle is not defined by anyone else. And a person who says that they've always wanted their dream coming to America, whatever you want to say, is and was to be a business owner, yet they realize that there are certain things that they're not good at, or there are certain things that are just too complicated or frankly just too time consuming at this moment to chase their dream of being a business owner. Yet there's this idea of a franchise where they can take the best parts, most of the parts, and presumably someone else has done the R&D on the bad parts, but yet still have that level of ownership. So I think that's probably, I'm guessing, one of the myths, that you don't have your own control over the environment. But I have to ask, you talk about the top 13 myths of franchising. I don't know if we can go through all 13 of them, but I would love to know like the top myths you have and why you think everyone needs to know of otherwise.
So just backtracking to that first question, right? You talked about, or the first statement, you talked about, hey, people think that maybe I'm working for someone else. When I owned my franchise brand for 8.5 years, I never felt that I was working for someone else. It just felt like it was my own business with training wheels. That's the analogy. I was riding a bike with training wheels, right? So let's go through these myths one by one. And I don't have them all in front of me, but I can tell you just kind of a few that come to mind, the top 3 maybe. First one is that franchises are just fast food. That's a huge myth. I work with brands that are pre-screened in 75 different industries. So we're not talking about...
I feel like I just played into that accidentally. You're right. I played into that. I apologize.
So no. I mean, look, so I would say the vast majority of my placements over the past few years have been non-brick and mortar businesses. And there's a lot of attraction to those businesses in that you're not spending 10 years on a lease that is guaranteed personally. And you can kind of get started really quickly for a non-brick and mortar or non-storefront brand. Nothing against those. I still do plenty of those.
So it's mostly service businesses? The 75 categories are service?
So some of them are brick and mortar retail. If you name a specific industry, it's probably one of my 75 industries that I connect investors with. Right. But yes, the majority of my placements have been non-storefront brands over the past few years.
What do you say to the person who wants to start a franchise?
To become a franchisor?
Let's flip that on its head. Yeah. Like I have a business that I think it should be, I think I can franchise.
Yeah. I would say, hey, I would say that, oh my gosh, have you really thought this out? Because the skill set to become a great franchisor is a lot different than the skill set to become a fantastic business owner. You need to hire additional staff. It's a lot more expensive than you might think. And there are all these different costs related to staffing, meaning supporting your franchisees, and also marketing your business because there's so many competitors in the industry.
But isn't it correct that it's rare for a business to begin as a strict franchisor? Meaning that first brick and mortar store or that first service business that then became a large franchise, the founder probably just had one branch. I'm going to call it a branch for now, or one office or one location, and then realized that they might be onto something, and then they said, "Hey, I think that I should make this a franchise." So what I'm guessing is most of it is unplanned.
So what I would say is that this is totally people totally tend to underestimate how hard it is to become a franchisor. If you look at the McDonald's example, Ray Kroc, who's a traveling salesman, stumbles on this place and he's like, gee, this would be a great franchise brand, not the founder, right? So in many ways, it takes a minor miracle for a business to become a successful franchisor.
So what do you say to the serial entrepreneur who thinks that franchising is for them?
As a franchisor or as a potential franchisee?
Both.
For the serial entrepreneur that says, hey, I want to start the next McDonald's or next whatever, I would say, great, right? It's going to be a lot harder than you think, and invest in a support staff and a marketing engine, right? In order to get this thing off the ground and to differentiate yourself from other brands out there. For the person that's a serial entrepreneur that wants to become a franchisee, I would say, hey, are you really the kind of person that can take direction and sees value in brand and process? Because if you don't see any value in that you shouldn't do this.
So I want to go back to something we discussed earlier, just stimulated the question, the difference between that individuality and that following process. How do those two balance in the average franchise?
Depends on the franchise. Some are more onerous than others, right? So, I mean, for instance, with my franchise brand, they said, with marketing, you can kind of do your thing. You're not paying into a pool. Whereas if you invest in certain brands, you'll see their advertisement in the World Series or even when you go to a baseball game. But you got to pay money into a brand bucket or brand pool, and they spend it the way they want from the head office. So there's just kind of trade-offs depending on the system.
And I guess a person should ask those questions when they start, saying, how rigid is this versus how entrepreneurial it is? Because I assume also in those franchises that are advertising at the World Series or the Super Bowl, probably have to go through more approvals or whatever's to sponsor the local Little League. So I assume those two things are diametrically opposed.
So what I'm doing when I'm talking to candidates is I'm trying to find a perfect match. It's like matchmaking. I'm like a Yenta, right? Where I'm just kind of trying to figure this out. And one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is, do they want a system with lots of processes and lots of handholding, or do they not? And the kind of matches that I make for my candidates that are seasoned veterans is different than someone that's into franchising for the first time.
I want to throw out a crazy hypothesis, and please tell me if I'm right or wrong, because this could be a nutso view of keep hustling. The most successful people you've dealt with in the long term are the ones who followed the franchise's rigidity the best.
I don't think it's a crazy hypothesis at all. I mean, when I started my office cleaning master franchise, one of the biggest pieces of advice I got was follow the model.
But yet everybody says the way to money is new, doing your own thing, doing something differently. That's why I think I'm onto the hypothesis, right? But that's why people say nobody became rich following someone else. Yet I'm guessing that the most successful people that own franchises are those that found the franchise that spoke to them the most, like the brand, could follow the systems, and then ran with it, and probably owned multiple of the same franchise instead of different franchises in different industries.
So I'm a big believer in not following the crowd, right? Everyone said invest in tech stocks around 2000. Everyone said invest in crypto, right? There are all these different fads and everything in life and in franchising. Sometimes boring is beautiful. And what I would say too is that, look, you see people and there's like lots of money in muck. If you say someone, hey, I'm going to go ahead and invest in this business that is a porta potty and dumpster business, and I'm going to follow this model, there's something there, or a home healthcare agency. No, senior care is not glamorous, right? But it's something that grew by 12% last year.
I met a guy who's big in porta potties, and I thought he was totally insane. And he had a franchise. I think he was a franchisee, and his territory just kept growing. And I said, it's unbelievable because everybody needs porta potties. They can't figure out how to eliminate them. There's construction everywhere, and they cannot figure out how to eliminate porta potties. And you can eliminate porta potties. You could make them smaller, cleaner, more efficient, whatever. But if you have a construction site with no running water, you got to have a porta potty. And I think you're right. I think that the most amazing thing about hustle, and this is one of the things that I love talking about on the show, is that everybody's hustle is different. Everybody can see success differently. But I think you're right. There's so much great money in less glamour, right? Mattress Mac, the guy who makes all these crazy things, right? The guy made mattress is cool, yet I'm guessing in the first like 50 years of his business, everyone told him that he was a nutso for having a mattress store. And all those other kind of, I think that healthcare is a little bit different because people view it, it's going to be the wrong word, but it's like a little sexier. I think.
Really? Home health
But
care
you're
is
right.
sexy for seniors?
I think that people see leverage there. I think that the person who's the master, who's the most efficient, best service porta potty company, like I think that is an incredible opportunity to make money. Yet most people will tell you you're nuts. Or we're privileged for decades. Our longest running client is a home heating oil dealership where they deliver home heating oil to build commercial and residential buildings. Not so glamorous. And they were in the coal business, and then they were in the ice business. And now they're in the oil business. Yet whenever anyone tells them they're going to die, all of a sudden the government says we need more oil, even though we're switching to electricity or whatever else. So I think I'm a big fan of the trades, and I think that franchises are very similar to the trades, where sometimes it's less glamorous, yet there's just so much opportunity there.
I totally agree. And look, I mean, just talking about not specific brands, but some industries that are interesting, right? I mean, I have one thing in my inventory that's related to scooping up poop of dogs, right? And the amount of money people are willing to pay for someone going with a shovel to their backyard and scooping up dog poop is just ridiculous. And it's a recurring revenue model. Or things like cleaning out grout, right? Who thinks about grout, or even kitchen, like commercial kitchen cleaning of different vents. I mean, there's lots of stuff like that. There's really money in muck.
What got me on this was the guy or gal who comes to the office building in New York City, greatest city in the world, and has to check the fire extinguishers. Crazy business. They check it, they make sure there's pressure, they add a tag, and therefore then you're in compliance. And it's $30 a pop, $50 a pop, whatever the number is. There is like zero glamour in that. Yet it's recurring revenue. Everybody needs it. You just got to make it work. And for somebody whose hustle is driven by working hard, having that recurring, and wanting to have a certain level of independence, I feel like going at that alone would be very difficult. But finding those kind of franchises would probably be pretty incredible.
I agree. We've only gotten out to one of 13 myths here because this conversation is so interesting.
Yeah, go for it. Let's go. Give me a couple of the rapid fire. Go for it.
Okay, so second one is that I need to be full time as an owner operator, meaning I need if it's a hamburger joint, I need to be in the one in the back flipping burgers. That is totally untrue. There are plenty of semi-passive models where you hire a manager and you can keep your day job. Myth number 3 is that I need to be a multimillionaire to invest in franchises. I have plenty of great brands that start at about $125,000.
Can you finance that?
That's financeable as well, right? And just because something's smaller on the scale doesn't mean it's not a great business. And I would say some other things that come to mind are that's the other one, meaning the one that if you invest only 125K that you won't be successful. There's really not necessarily a correlation between the amount invested and the chances of success.
The reason why I think that this episode is so important is because I think that so many people who are probably on the fence, sitting in corporate America, wanting to do something, have that entrepreneurial itch but don't know how to take the leap. Reaching out to someone like you, and I don't do solicitations, but reaching out to someone like you or thinking about the franchise model could really be the first step because so many of the roadblocks are taken away. And if nothing else, even if there's less long-term franchising, even if they decide to then open another business, getting your feet wet with ownership and business ownership and entrepreneurship while someone else is taking care of at least some of the headache feels like a great way to enter the entrepreneurial business owner stage of life for those people that want to do it. And I feel like I didn't think of it until I saw your name come across my desk. So if for no other reason, I'm grateful that you came on to mention that today.
Well, I'm grateful to speak with you today as well.
Gosh, I gotta keep hustling, loyal listeners. Everybody look at the franchising. Let's find some franchises. Let's get involved. And then I want to hear your journey. Reach out to Adam. Let's have your journey on here because I would love to have a franchise owner, someone who thought that they could never be a business owner, come on Keep Hustling and inspire our listeners to keep hustling in that way, which is totally against what I'll call the traditional hustle culture, which is what we love here on Keep Hustling.
I want to make an offer too. I have some great people that have
it.
become franchisees. I'm sure they'd love to be on your show. I'm happy to kind of ask them.
Send them my way. I love that. Adam, as you know, we have a closing tradition on our podcast where we ask our listeners to leave us with their favorite motivational or inspirational quote and what it means to their hustle. So with that, I will say thank you again for being here, all the way from Houston, Texas, formerly of New Jersey, maybe the second greatest state, but definitely bordering on the greatest state. So if nothing else, choose good neighbors. And with that, I will turn the floor over to you.
So my quote, I am going ahead and I am borrowing this from David Ramsey, right? But the quote is, and I have it on my wall here, so that's why I'm looking this way. But the quote is, focused intensity over time multiplied by God equals unstoppable momentum.
I absolutely love that. I have nothing else to say other than this has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good. And of course, and always, in whatever way you choose, franchise, traditional, not traditional, keep hustling. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. The listeners are the most important part of this show. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more listeners. Plus, be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. We have some amazing guests and topics lined up for you, and we don't want you to miss out. And finally, if you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod on Instagram, X, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We would love to hear from you to continue the conversation. Thanks again for tuning in and supporting our podcast. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.